Mic check, mic check. Be on in just a few minutes here.
The defendant will rise and face the jury and hearken to its verdicts.
State of Wisconsin versus Kyle Rittenhouse. As to the first count of the information, Joseph Rosenbaum. We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the second count of the information, Richard McGinnis. We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the third count of the information, unknown male. We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the fourth count of the information, Anthony Huber, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the fifth count of the information, Gage Grosskreutz, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty.
Members of the jury, are these your unanimous verdicts? Is there anyone who does not agree with the verdicts as read? Would you wish the jury polled? No. Okay. Okay, folks, your job is done, and we started just about 3 weeks ago. And I told you it could last 2 weeks and 2 days. This is 2 weeks. This is 3 weeks. You were a wonderful jury to work with. You were punctual. You were attentive. And the forgotten six over here who had a very difficult job of keeping from discussing the case during the time that they were sequestered as well. All of you, I couldn't have asked for a better jury to work with. And it has truly been my pleasure. I think, without commenting on your the verdicts themselves, just in terms of your the attentiveness and the cooperation that you gave to us, justifies the confidence.
Welcome back, Wolf Pack. It's Fox Gervais here. Well. Not guilty on all 5 counts. Really, 6 counts. We started off with 6 counts. Throughout the last 3 weeks, those 6 counts mutated into 12 additional lesser counts. One of the original counts was dropped. And now here we are at the end of it, 3 weeks later, and all missed. State took 16 shots at Kyle. None of them landed. Kyle Rittenhouse, not guilty on all counts. Well, That was very exciting. I don't know where to go from here because, man, you guys who've been with me the whole time too, we have sunk an awful lot of time into this thing. My goodness, a lot of just emotional investment into the outcome of this case. Certainly, and we'll get into the greater, broader political consequences of this. Yada yada yada, but the specificity of the case, the specific people involved, Kyle Rittenhouse as a person, the plight that he went through, having followed this particular incident. Obviously, we have just generalized persecution of American citizens all the time, right? But Kyle Rittenhouse was a name and a face put to a specific instance of it. And because he had a face and a name, the left and the media and the establishment were particularly vicious. And like I said, we'll get into the kind of the national broader implications of this, but on a personal level, having seen what we saw happen to Kyle, what we now know was attempts on his life. What the jury has come back to find is that these people, Joseph Rosenbaum, Anthony Kubert, Gage Grosswicks, they intended to kill Kyle. And he escaped that by very narrow margins, by fractions of a degree, by milliseconds. He escaped that. And then over the last 14 months, we've watched as the currently sitting president, although not today, currently sitting president of the United States ran his campaign with Kyle's face as the face of white supremacy. Joe Biden put out 2 political ads where Kyle Rittenhouse's face was right next to the words white supremacy. This is the kind from every level, the entire media establishment, the entire political establishment, the current sitting executive branch coming down on this kid. Why? Because he wouldn't back down. He didn't die. That was Kyle's crime, was he didn't die. That's always what they want. That's what they've always wanted from every authoritarian regime, is they want you to not just go to your death, not just march to your death, but be glad to do it. Don't resist. How dare you resist their influence? The Democrats, Kamala Harris in particular, Joe Biden in particular, both funding and going to visit the rioters, the rapists in Kenosha. Kamala Harris, a day before this even happened, going to visit Jacob Blake in the hospital after he raped somebody. Kamala Harris providing legal defense funds on her campaign website, providing legal defense funds for the kinds of people that attacked Kyle that night. The liberal DAs and the so-called justice system allowing a plea deal for a 5-time child rapist, for a 40-count domestic abuser, for somebody who committed armed robbery while drunk. The state allowed them loose, and then the city of Kenosha let them burn the city and come after people that Kyle knew to come after his community. And Kyle said, no, we're not going to do that. And because he had the audacity to stand up and not just get his head bashed in. You heard it in the closing arguments from the state. The state's closing arguments is sometimes we all take a beating. That's the state's message. That is the authoritarian message, is that sometimes you take a beating on behalf of the foot soldiers of the authoritarians. And Kyle said, no. She said, bang, bang, bang. But that is the amount of effort put against Kyle. The left through their violent foot soldiers, the left through their pedophiles, the left through their domestic abusers at Kyle. They missed. Kyle won. Then the left spun up their media establishment, billions of dollars of media empire, all targeted at Kyle. They couldn't do it. And then they spun up their George Soros-funded DAs and the clearly corrupt police establishment in Kenosha, fabricating evidence, denying questioning his Fifth Amendment right, questioning his right to counsel, not allowing him to face his accuser by withholding the identity of Jump Kick Man, and the just pure fabrication of evidence. They still couldn't get it. The left threw everything they had at this kid, and they missed. So, from just a human standpoint, like I said, we've all put a tremendous amount of emotional investment into this case because of the human being, the person behind it, Kyle Rittenhouse, and having, again, that face and name that is the target of the establishment, throwing everything they got at him. Again, we have these generalized narratives of, the right is getting oppressed by the left and the authoritarians, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a problem. And it's not, I'm not trying to be dismissive of it, but it's different when it's generalized. It's different when it's blunted by a generalized shared misery that we all have. It's different when they're doing it to a specific individual person. And not just that they were doing it to him, but the reason why they were doing it to him. The reason why being he stood up against them. They wanted to let cities burn. They wanted to make sure that their political enemies had no quarter, that they'd have their businesses burned down, that they would be scared to stand up. Even, their political enemies in other cities, look at what we're doing in Kenosha. Look what we allowed them to do all summer. If you guys stand up against us, we'll do it again. We'll do it to you. We'll burn you alive inside your own small business. We'll bash your skull in with a skateboard. We'll drop kick your head and leave you with permanent disabilities. And, if you're really lucky, we'll kill you. That's the left's message of the summer of 2020. Kyle said no. And because he said no, the left had to throw everything they had at him. Because if Kyle won, which he did, he won today, then maybe you could win too. Wouldn't that be unfortunate for them? So, alrighty. So, let's watch one more time because I think this was pretty powerful. I've probably watched them read out the verdict probably 5 times now. Definitely watched it live. But let's watch it one more time because it's pretty powerful, and I want you to really focus on watch Kyle, watch his face as they're reading out his life sentence. When you are in a trial like this, you're always getting a life sentence. Whether that life sentence is in jail or that life sentence is freedom, you're getting a life sentence, and it's very important what that sentence is. And let's watch Kyle's face and watch him drop to his knees after they read out what he is going to deal with the rest of his life, which is freedom.
Wonderful jury today.
Account of the information
To its verdict. The defendant will rise, face the jury, and hearken to its verdicts.
Hearken to its verdicts.
State of Wisconsin versus Kyle Rittenhouse. As to the first count of the information, Joseph Rosenbaum. We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the second count of the information, Richard McGinnis. We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the third count of the information, unknown male, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the fourth count of the information, Anthony Huber, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the fifth count of the information, Gage Grosskreutz, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty.
Members of the jury, are these your unanimous verdicts? Is there anyone who does not agree with the verdicts as read? Would you wish the jury polled?
Alrighty, so All right. I think an important thing to point out here is not just that Kyle was found innocent. This was a particular case. So it's been brought up that self-defense cases are rarer than regular murder, homicide cases, etc. The number of genuine self-defense cases within that smaller subsection of self-defense cases is even rarer. Kyle had the, well, I don't know if I call it the luxury, but he certainly had the benefit of the doubt of 100 hours of footage from 12 different angles of every step he took that night. But because it was a self-defense case, what self-defense means is that somebody else was committing a crime, or allegedly somebody was committing a crime against you. And so self-defense grants you the privilege, this has been explained at the beginning of the trial, self-defense grants you the privilege to break the law to defend yourself. It states that if you shoot somebody, you brandish your weapon at them, you kill them, it's still against the law. However, if you invoke self-defense, you are now granted permission. You have the privilege of breaking that law. But what's the precursor to that? What's the key part of that formula is you have the privilege of breaking the law to defend yourself against somebody who is also committing a crime. But not just any crime, a crime which is likely to result in death or injury of yourself. So in finding Kyle not guilty, in finding that he did have the right to invoke the privilege of self-defense, they not only found that Kyle wasn't guilty, they found that Joseph Rosenbaum was a criminal, that he committed a crime, and that Joseph Rosenbaum is guilty of attempting to kill Kyle Rittenhouse. In finding Kyle Rittenhouse not guilty, Anthony Hubert has been found guilty of attempting to murder Kyle Rittenhouse. In finding Kyle Rittenhouse not guilty, Gage Grosswicks has been found guilty of attempting to murder Kyle Rittenhouse. That's the only way to read this, because that's what the law says. If it wasn't true that Rosenbaum, Hubert, and Grosswicks were attempting to murder Kyle, the jury couldn't have found him innocent. They could not have found him innocent or granted him the privilege of self-defense. So don't forget that here. The left would have you believe it was even the state's position. The state attorneys, prosecutors said it is the state's opinion that Anthony Hubert, Gage Grosswicks, and Rosenbaum, the child rapist, are heroes. That's what the state said. That's what Prosecutor Blunchbox said, was that it's the state's opinion that those three are heroes. It was the state's opinion that the mob of leftist foot soldiers that night that chased Kyle and tried to kill him, they said that it was their opinion that the crowd was full of heroes that night. And so this acquittal for Kyle is not just about Kyle being innocent and the state missing their shot. It's about the left and the state being 180 degrees wrong about what happened. Is Joseph Rosenbaum a hero? No, he was a criminal who died while trying to kill Kyle Rittenhouse. That's what the jury found today. Was Anthony Hubert a hero? No, he was a criminal who died trying to kill Kyle Rittenhouse. Was Gage Grosswicks a hero? No, he was a criminal who got his arm blown off while he was attempting to murder Kyle Rittenhouse. That's what the jury found today. So don't let the left forget this. It's not just a victory for Kyle. This gets into the broader narrative now. This is a victory for us more broadly because it shows that a jury of Canotians, I guess, found that at least three of the left's foot soldiers, of the left's quote unquote heroes. You had leftists standing outside the courthouse this week holding signs with Gage, Rosenbaum, and Hubert dressed up like Superman. It's not just about Kyle. It's about the left being so wrong that their heroes are now found to be guilty of attempted murder. that their heroes are so evil they even attempted the murder, but so incompetent they couldn't finish the job. That's who the left finds heroes. And should we be surprised? Look at Kamala. She actually called the hell's his name? Jacob Blake. She called him a hero. She went to go visit him in his hospital 7 days after he tried to rape somebody. Or after he successfully raped them, after he was done raping them and was proceeding to kidnap her kids. The state calling Joseph Rosenbaum the 5-time child rapist, brutally raping 9-year-olds. They call him a hero. They call they've all but sainted the speedball addict, George Floyd, who held guns to pregnant ladies' bellies because he didn't like the cut of their jib, I guess. The left they have no hero, or they have no villain that they won't declare a hero. You kind of got to imagine at some point, like, maybe you guys are the baddies. Maybe the left, maybe they should sit down and just think about it for a second. Like, hey man, like all of our heroes are rapists, murderers, pedophiles, women abusers, etc., etc. Maybe we're the baddies. Maybe our heroes are bad guys, but they don't get it. But this proves it once again. If there was justice in the world, Rosenbaum would have been in jail. They were going to send Kyle to jail for about 5 or 6 times longer for killing Rosenbaum than what Rosenbaum got for raping even one child. Maybe if there was some justice here, maybe if we had some criminal reform, maybe not the type of criminal reform that the left is talking about, maybe if we had some criminal reform in this country, Rosenbaum would still have been in jail. Anthony Hubert, if there was any justice in this world, maybe after the 37th count of domestic battery and holding a knife to his brother while he held his grandmother hostage and forced her to clean his room. Maybe if he had been in jail for a little bit longer, if we had some criminal justice reform that had Anthony Hubert in jail for a little bit longer, maybe none of this would have happened. Maybe if Gage Grosswicks, after committing armed robbery, this is something that's been coming out recently. I think we had some hints of it earlier, but Gage's CCW wasn't just expired, it was revoked. Why was it revoked? Because he used his Glock, the one that he pointed at Kyle's head, he used that Glock in an armed robbery while he was drunk. Maybe if there was some criminal justice reform, Gage would have been in jail instead of at the riot. So that's who the left's heroes are. And I don't know if I'd go so far as to call Kyle my hero. I think it's a little over the top. But I would say that he's worthy of consideration, certainly a lot more so. And that's even me, like, right? So, like, I'll sit there and I'll be cautious about, Kyle's a hero or he's my hero or whatever. But I'll sit there and I'll think about it because I don't want to be hyperbolic and I don't want to, do it over the top. But the left will just say, oh, like this pedophile, like, yeah, like, sure. Like, how many kids did he rape? 5? Okay, yeah, we'll put him in a superhero costume. They just, I don't know. There's a lot of talk about, the last couple of years here, but certainly the last couple of months during the Biden administration, the discussion about the peaceful divorce. And I don't see how we continue living alongside people who venerate to the point of sainthood rapists and domestic abusers and people who would use a gun for armed robbery. They elevate them to heroes, and then they want Kyle to be put in jail for life. They'll call him a white supremacist. and they'll fabricate evidence against him. You had yesterday, I skipped streaming yesterday, but the only real news that happened yesterday is that MSNBC was found to have been attempting to do jury intimidation. They sent one of their goons to follow the jury bus home. It was discovered yesterday that the way the jury has been getting in and out of the courtroom is they have been taking a blacked out bus to undisclosed locations to get picked up and then driven into town, driven into the back of the courthouse, and then they go do their stuff for the day. Then they leave on the bus back to that unknown location. Well, MSNBC sent I'll call him a goon to go follow the bus, and who knows what he was going to do. We know that was the third time somebody had been attempting to track down the jurors outside of the courtroom. They'll do jury intimidation. They'll fabricate evidence. They withheld witnesses. They question Kyle's evocation of several constitutional rights. You had, let's see here, we had during the course of the trial, the state questioned his right to remain silent. They questioned his right to counsel. They questioned his right to face his accuser by lying that they knew the identity of Jump Kick Man. Jump Kick Man was one of the charges against Kyle. You have the right to face your accuser in this country. If the state wants to provide Jump Kick Man as one of the charges against Kyle, and they know who that person is, Kyle has the right to face him. They withheld that from him. They withheld the right for him to see the evidence that they had against him to respond to it by, again, fabricating evidence that didn't exist, and then having this ridiculous custody chain where they're sending the wrong videos to the defense. And then you had, underlying it all, you had the questioning of his right to keep and bear arms. You have that much going against him, and Kyle just happened to be, not that he shouldn't have been there, but I'm trying to say this not the way that it sounds, but Kyle just happened to be the one that this happened to. Clearly, with as much violence as what went on in 2020, I'm kind of surprised that this didn't happen more often. But Kyle kind of just happened to be the one, and really, actually, I should back up on that, because what happened to Kyle did happen many times. It wasn't that Kyle was the first time that this happened. It's just Kyle's the first one that lived, right? We had dozens of people. Well, we had 30 plus people die as a direct result of the George Floyd riots. You had hundreds of people who have life-changing injuries as a direct result of it. Kyle, the reason why he's unique is because he's a would-be head bashed in, bleeding out on the ground, except for he didn't. Except for he was able to fight back, and he was able to defend himself. So that's really the only thing that was unique to Kyle there. But basically, Kyle could have been anybody. He could have been any one of us. He could have been anybody in any of the other cities that burned down that summer. And essentially, you had the option between getting your skull bashed in by a leftist mob, or, I guess, spending 14 months wondering whether or not the professional leftist mob was going to put you in jail for the rest of your life. And I don't know how we live with those people. I really don't. That's something I talked about a long time ago when we had a stream about leftist walkaways, and we talked a little bit about it was way back when, if you want to dig through the channel. Yeah, if you want to dig through the channel archive, the show I'm referencing would be the I can't remember what it's called, but something about walkaways. Either way, we talked a little bit about what was his name? Was it Bernie Yezminov? Can't remember. That Russian dude from the 70s and 80s who was Yuri Bezmenov. That's who it is. We talked about Yuri Bezmenov a little bit. I'll circle back to what I'm talking about here. This is very free form tonight, guys. Nothing's on. There's very few notes right now. This is all just off the top of my head right now. And I am drinking slightly. Happy Friday. So we talked about Yuri Bezmenov probably about 2 years ago almost. And his description of what it was that communists were trying to do to subvert Americans with the education system and create these generations of what he called broken people, wrong-thinking people. We know them today as the NPCs. But one of the key issues that I locked in on when discussing him was not only do you have these wrong-thinking people that the communist education establishment has created, but that Yuri, from his experience, you couldn't reverse the damage done. If you allowed the communists to subvert them as children and throughout their education system and up through their growing up, it created this wrong thinking framework in their heads that was irreversible. They would think that the state was correct and that these leftist ideologies were correct right up until the point that they were in the gulags themselves. And we see what that does is they have this ideological rigidity that all of this evidence, all of this video of what happened that night, and you still had, up until last week, you still had people thinking that Kyle shot black people, that Kyle took, you had we'll go through some tweets here in a little bit. You had the mayor of New York an hour ago tweet out that, how come Kyle was allowed to bring a rifle across state lines when that's just, it's just not true. You have these wrong thinking people who, in the face of evidence of actual things happening, think that the opposite happened. That will look at a child rapist and say, that's my hero. That will look at a domestic abuser and look at somebody who's chasing down a kid, pointing a rifle at pointing a Glock at their head, and burning down a gas station and a church and say, that's my hero because they support my political party. I don't know how we live with those people. I really don't. And Yuri said it too, that once they're like that, you can't reverse it. He didn't know of a way of deprogramming that. And I don't know that there is. I don't know that there is. If Yuri, the Soviet propaganda minister, doesn't know how to deprogram radicals, I don't know if I'm going to be able to figure it out. I don't know if any of us are going to be able to figure it out. And I don't even know, this isn't to say like, oh, here's my three-step plan for how we actually separate out the country. Like, no. I don't think it's practical or feasible in any way. My point is, I just don't know how do we continue living with these people? Because Kyle's verdict today, it took 4 days to get to this. It took 4 days with as much evidence as there was, which with as weak as the state's case was, it still took them 4 days. What were they talking about? What were they struggling with? Now, there's been some discussion about, maybe they were worried about jury intimidation, but for 4 days, I don't know. I think the problem is that Kyle got lucky with his jury selection, but will the next Kyle get lucky with his jury selection? Will you get lucky with the jury selection? Will you even have a jury? Story we'll cover tomorrow during the weekly news recap will be, turns out the FBI really has been pointing their domestic terror, intelligence apparatus at parents going to school board meetings. Where Kyle's lucky that he even got a trial. We're quickly approaching the point where trials like Kyle's aren't going to happen anymore. You're just going to get, the FBI is just going to break down your door and steal all your crap like they did to James O'Keefe a few weeks ago. Or they'll decide that for the crime of trespassing, we're going to throw you in a DC jail basement for 11 months without, access to counsel or basic human rights or anything like that. And seeing the verdict here, that might just dig the left in saying, well, we can't possibly send these kinds of people to trial anymore. The jury is not reliable. This might make them dig their heels in further. The next Kyle might just get abducted by the FBI on terrorism charges. They'll never seen again. So I don't know what we do from here, but I'm happy for Kyle. I think that this is I'm absurdly happy for Kyle. I didn't quite I didn't quite shed a tear, but I was feeling pretty happy and like very emotional when that verdict came through. And then seeing Kyle, the way his reaction was, him falling to his feet or falling to his knees. And there was some questions last week about, from a lot of people is, was Kyle's tears on the stand, was his breakdown, his PTSD attack on the stand, was that genuine? And I think you see his reaction here when the verdict's read out, and it looks the same. And so I guess, maybe he was faking being happy and emotional. He was faking his emotion when they told him that he was going to be free for the rest of his life and not going to be in prison for the rest of his life. But yeah, I was pretty emotional too. So let's see here. There was I watched a quick interview with the defense attorney Richards, who's the guy with the pink tie in the bottom corner there. He had an interview about an hour ago, and they asked him, "Don't you?" It was a question. It's hard to hear the question, but it's something to the effect of, people are saying that this is going to embolden vigilantism. This decision to acquit Kyle will embolden vigilantism. Like, what's your response? And he just said, I think they should watch the trial. Because it's clear that this wasn't vigilantism. This wasn't Kyle running around in a mask in the dead of night, hunting down wrongdoers. No, he was just there cleaning graffiti, putting out fires, wrapping people with sprained ankles. And then a pedophile chased him. And then a domestic abuser hit him in the head with a skateboard. And then another domestic abuser and a drunk, this jump kick man, now that we know who he is, kicked him in the face, put the sole of his boot on Kyle's nose and tried to grind his head into the pavement. And then Gage Grosswicks, the drunken armed robber. It's interesting because that wasn't Gage pointing a pistol at Kyle's face. That wasn't the first time. That wasn't the first time Gage had pointed a gun at somebody's face. The time before that, he was pointing a gun at somebody who had a purse he wanted. I don't know. I was going to put that on a arm that's blown off, but you had Kyle chased down by the worst people in the world, and he waited until they were Rosenbaum literally had his hand over top of the rifle and was touching it before Kyle shot. You had Hubert literally touching the rifle before he shot. You had Jump Kick Man literally have a boot touching Kyle's face before Kyle shot. And then you had Gage pointing a Glock within 2 degrees of rotation of where Kyle's head was before Kyle shot. The idea that is vigilantism, that is not the definition of vigilantism. Maybe I'm wrong by now because Webster's dictionary has been having a habit of when leftists use words wrong, they'll change the definition, over the course of the next half hour. So maybe I could be wrong. Maybe vigilantism now just means self-defense or it has the same definition. I don't know. But no, I don't think this is going to embolden vigilantism because that has nothing to do with vigilantism. That's just the false leftist narrative. And that's what they're going to continue to go with. They'll say, oh, we're going to letting vigilantes go free now. No, this wasn't vigilantism. But the question of when they're saying, well, this emboldened vigilantism, what they're really asking is what they're really concerned about, what the left is really concerned about this case, they're really concerned about the result of it being, is they're not concerned that it's going to embolden vigilantes. They're concerned that it's going to embolden you to not back down, to not take your beating. They're worried you'll be emboldened to stand up for yourself against them, that you'll be emboldened not to have their foot soldiers bash your head in with a skateboard, that you'll be emboldened not to let them steal your guns. How's that for a metaphor? You got a pedophile leftist trying to steal Kyle's gun, and then there's Rosenbaum. Oh, wait. Yeah, they couldn't do it in the courts, or they couldn't do it in the legislature, so they sent Rosenbaum after him. Yeah, the Democrat pedophiles in the legislature couldn't steal Kyle's gun, so they sent their leftist pedophile foot soldier after him instead. And I guess the question is, if they're so scared of Kyle's trial emboldening us, should they be? And I think yes. I think that Kyle's trial should embolden us. I think it should embolden us to stand up. I think it should embolden us to defend our communities, to not be victims. The left loves their victims. They love being a victim any possible way they can. And they hate when you're not. They hate when you're not a victim. And I think that they should be worried that this will embolden us to not be victims anymore. I do also want to say that while I'm happy with the verdict of not guilty, this isn't justice. Now, that's not to say that every case of self-defense is so clear-cut, right? So there are some times where, there really is a question about what happened, and you do need to have a trial to come to the truth. But the evidence in this case was so lacking. The precursors and the tests for all of the charges, none of them held up. Very thirsty. None of the evidence was enough to support the initial charges. You actually we started seeing not just the state's case against Kyle, not that it fell apart, it never materialized. It was just not there at all. All of their witnesses, even their star witness Gage Grosswicks, testified that Kyle shot in self-defense. Or, maybe not in the specific words, but that was the effect of their testimony. But it wasn't just that the case never materialized. The charges were disintegrating in real time with the trial. You had the curfew violation, which stuck for 14 months, and then the judge says, the state and the city have never provided any evidence that this was a legal curfew. We do live in America. This isn't the Soviet Union. This isn't Nazi Germany or Maoist China. You can't just declare a curfew. We've got civil rights. You can't just declare a curfew. There's a legal procedure to go through for that. And along with that, you can't just declare lockdowns. You can't just declare vaccine mandates or mask mandates. We've got civil rights in this country. Those sorts of things have to go through the proper channels, the proper procedures. And the judge is not convinced that the city of Kenosha went through the proper procedure of issuing a curfew. So how could Kyle be in violation of an illegal curfew order? He's not. This is America. You don't get to have edicts like that. So we saw that charge just evaporate, just fall to pieces, to dust. It got Thanos'd away right at the start of the trial. And then you had this week the gun charge. Oh, Kyle's illegally possessing an AR-15. He's such a bad person. We got to charge him with that. That was one of the charges. That's why Kyle was only found not guilty on 5 charges, just because the 6th charge, illegal possession of a dangerous weapon, that evaporated too because it wasn't true. They charged him with something that they had no evidence for. They clearly didn't even read the law. We got to watch this on a previous trial update. They didn't even, when they read through the law to decide whether or not Kyle was actually guilty of that, the state was just like, oh yeah, I guess, no contest then, I guess. Well, they didn't have any evidence to actually charge him with that. It's just, oh, well, I don't feel like reading through the law, so we're going to just charge Kyle with this gun charge and not actually read through what the law says. And, the law inconveniently says that someone Kyle's age is allowed to possess a weapon. It was rather short law. It wasn't a super long law. It wasn't super complicated, but they just charged him with it anyways. And then that just fell to pieces because it was a trumped up charge that didn't exist. The charging him with reckless endangerment. There was no evidence that he was being reckless. Charging him with murder when the self-defense evidence was so clear-cut. There was so much clear-cut video evidence, and that was shown during the trial. And I guess, Jesus, thank God the jury was swayed by that. But there wasn't any evidence that it was anything but self-defense. There was no evidence that it was anything but self-defense. And so the not guilty verdict is still a miscarriage of justice. You still had, during the trial, all of these very specific violations of Kyle's constitutional rights. That's a miscarriage of justice. The fact that this was brought to court at all is a miscarriage of justice. They might not have got Kyle away for life, but they got him away for 14 months. You think the last 14 months of Kyle's life have been real peachy? Not a chance. You see this. You see his face on the top left here. Is that the face of somebody who's been having a peachy 14 months? Is that the face of somebody who got off scot-free? This was a severe miscarriage of justice. Just the fact that the case came to trial at all. Now, it was mitigated somewhat by the fact that the jury came back with not guilty, but I mean, is that what we want? Is that the America that we want? Is that the legal system that we want? Is that for political reasons, if the president just decides that or if a candidate for president just decides that you're the face of the enemy, that you're the other, and that he's going to use your face in 2 campaign ads and call you a white supremacist, that, well, it's not a big deal because we got this legal system. We'll run you through the ringer for 14 months, and then we'll make you go through 3 weeks of trial, and we'll make you wait for 4 days while the 12 idiots from Bohunk, Kenosha decide whether or not they're going to send you to jail for 80 years. And, it's fine. It's no big deal. They found him innocent. He's free to go. Oops, our bad, right? Is that the country that you want to live in, where just on the whim of politics, you get selected out for a year-long trial at the cost of, I think the estimates for Kyle's court case are something like, $200,000-$300,000. Is that the America that we want to live in, or is maybe the America that we want to live in is that the state only gets to prosecute you if there's any evidence against you, if there's actually a case against you, that they don't just get to spend Wisconsin tax dollars to harass Kyle for 14 months. And then Kyle gets lucky that 16 idiots from Kenosha, 12 idiots from Kenosha decided that he was free to go. Is that the dice that we want to roll? Or is maybe it was a miscarriage of justice that he was brought to trial in the first place? I think that's where the miscarriage of justice was at, and it's concerning because we've seen the legal system be used for harassment, and Kyle's lucky because they actually used the proper court system. But we see how the Obama IRS and now the Biden DOJ using the apparatus of the state to just come after you, to come after parents for political reasons, to come after conservative groups for tax reasons that are made up. And those ones don't get a jury trial. They just spirit away all your money and just take you off to jail, or close off all your accounts, or whatever. Kyle's lucky that they ran him through the jury process. But is that the America that we want to live in? Is that you just, if you happen to have the eye of Sauron fall upon you, you now have basically got to spend a couple years worth of salary, a giant house worth of money on defending yourself against the government who's using your tax dollars and the tax dollars of all your community members to fight you for a year and a half. And then if you're lucky, a jury of the stupidest people in your town will find you innocent. Or maybe the government doesn't come after you. Would we maybe rather have it be that the government doesn't get politicized and doesn't come after you for political reasons? That maybe you only get charged with something if there's evidence that you did something wrong. Or maybe, some of these extrajudicial organizations like the IRS and the FBI and all the other DOJ entities that maybe they don't have enough power. They haven't been given enough governmental power to actually come after you in the way that they have been. I don't know. A lot of people are talking today. The 3 hours since this happened, and I've been with you guys for about an hour of it. The commentary was kind of happy, and it should be. We should definitely be celebrating tonight for Kyle. This is great. Again, I talked about this the last couple of times. There's two things going on right now. There was the Kyle Rittenhouse case, which is thankfully over now, and there was how we felt for Kyle and what we wanted for Kyle. But there's also the secondary narrative of what's going on in the larger context. What parts of the trial were more beneficial to the larger context. And I went through and I explained that on previous days, that there was certain things that were said by Kyle's defense attorneys that, thankfully that all worked out, right? At that time we didn't know, but now we know that everything that the defense said ended up working out. So that's great. I wouldn't change a thing. Because now if you, I would have tweaked this or I would have tweaked that. Well, you don't know what would have happened. So at this point, whatever they did, whatever it seemed like at the time or whatever it seems like looking back on it, it was obviously the right choice because it got us to not guilty. And I'd said multiple times, I didn't really care how they got there. Whether it's just the judge throws out the case or, the jury comes back with not guilty, it doesn't matter. Kyle has to go free. But so there were certain things that I had said, for Kyle's sake, for that narrative, whatever it takes for Kyle. But for the broader narrative, there were certain things that if the jury came back with not guilty, that would be better than the judge just throwing it out. For the national conversation, that would be better. For the national conversation, it was better that Kyle's defense attorney had basically leaned into the idea that it wasn't just Kyle not doing something wrong, but Kyle defending himself was actually something actively correct. It was the right thing to do. I thought that was great for the national conversation. I thought it was pretty risky strategy for Kyle's perspective. So we have these kind of two things going on, these two narratives. And now that we're past the trial phase, now that we're past the not guilty verdict, from the narrative of Kyle, this is great. This is absolutely fantastic. But from the narrative for the national politics, what does this mean for the rest of us? I don't know that this is much to celebrate. I think that within Wisconsin, this has just basically confirmed the status quo of what the law said about self-defense. It's confirmed the status quo. Hold on a second. Sorry, somebody's texting me here. I don't think that it did much for Wisconsin law. Again, it set the precedent that it was just status quo. Now, if it had gone the other way, if it had been guilty, that would have been a pretty major change to like the precedent of Wisconsin law, what it meant for self-defense. On a national level, this Wisconsin case was never going to affect the other 49 states. But it would have looked bad nationally. But because it did go through, it doesn't really do much to bolster self-defense anywhere else. I think, in fact, it just, again, the fact that it even went to court, that's the thing that damages self-defense, or the kind of principle of self-defense. For Dyer out there, I'm streaming. I'm not reading the news. I'm streaming. If you've got something, send me a link. Don't just ask me a question. Let's see here. Yeah, and somebody in YouTube's chat saying, you shouldn't have to go on trial for defending yourself. Again, if there's questions about what happened, I think that the trial system, and the reason why the trial system allows the defendant to win, is because sometimes the defendant's in the right, and sometimes you need to go through a trial to figure that out. But sometimes you don't, right? Sometimes you don't need to go through a trial to figure that out. Like, for instance, I think that let's see here, Prosecutor Krause, often called Lunchbox, I find him to be visually offensive. I think that he should be put on trial for that. However, we don't just get to put people on trial for whatever, for offending us. There has to be some reason for it. And I don't think that there was any reason to put Kyle on trial when it was this clear cut. So when you have Dyer, you gotta send me a link, or I don't know. When you've got something that's this clear cut, Crowder described it as a layup, and he's recognized the same issue that I have right now, where he described this case as such a clear cut layup that it's concerning. Obviously it's a huge disaster if it didn't get found not guilty, but even if it does get found not guilty, it's kind of a problem that it went to court in the first place. Like, that is the issue. Like, that is what's damaging. So again, from the Kyle-centric narrative, this is great. This is fantastic. Party all night. From the national conversation narrative, I think the damage was done when this was brought to trial. I think the not guilty just makes it less bad. But the thing that makes it bad wasn't going to be a guilty verdict. The thing that was making it bad was the fact that it was brought at all. And the reason why you don't bring just any trial to, or anything, you don't just make charges against everything, right, is because sometimes the jury gets it wrong. And you're not supposed to give the jury the option of screwing it up when there's not a question about what happened. There was, for instance, on the gun charge where Kyle had his charge dropped for illegally possessing a dangerous weapon. The reason why that charge was dropped is because there was no evidence that Kyle had broken that law. And so you might think, oh, well, just send it to the jury and they'll just find him not guilty on it because there's no evidence that he broke the law. No. You don't just get to send everything to a jury, because you can only do that if there's a question about it. If there's no question whether or not you broke the law, then you don't get to send it to a jury for, again, the 12 dullest people in your town to decide what to do with you. They don't get that privilege of deciding on you just because some idiot district attorney decided they wanted to harass you for the day. And just the exact same way as the gun charge, Kyle none of the evidence met the burden of bringing the charges that they brought against him. They brought against him first-degree reckless homicide. First-degree reckless homicide means that Kyle pre-planned hunting human to murder them on purpose, that he premeditated murder. There was no evidence that he did that. There was no evidence of premeditation. It's absolutely ridiculous. And they should never have put that before a jury to decide that. Let's see here. All right, so I'm getting. Let me see what these text messages are. Did you see that the judge accepted the motion to dismiss the charges with prejudice after? No. So that's not what happened. Okay, so I think that there's some. Now I might be totally wrong at this, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. So there's some confusion as to some of the language the judge used after the verdict was read. So the verdict was read that we just watched through twice was not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, and then the judge talked. He asked the state prosecutors, do you have any, do you have anything else to say? Do you guys have any motions or anything to put in at this time, or we're going to accept the verdict? And the state had nothing else to say. And so the judge says, okay, the charges are dismissed with prejudice. Now, I think that's just standard. Now, that might be getting confused with earlier when there was a motion for mistrial with prejudice. And if the motion for mistrial with prejudice had been accepted, the with prejudice part meant that the charges could never be retried, that the trial would just be over. They wouldn't send it to jury or anything like that. And then Kyle would just be free to go, and the charges would just be dropped and not allowed to be brought back up. When the jury found him not guilty, the judge said, okay, because the jury's found you not guilty, you're no longer charged with these crimes. Those fall off of your record. You're no longer charged. And the state is, because the jury decided it, they are dropped with prejudice, which means that they can't be brought back up again. So I think the dropping the charges with prejudice, I think that's just nominal. Like, I think that's just standard for when the jury comes back, because this otherwise, if the charges were just dropped without prejudice after the jury decided, then, you know, presumably the state could just recharge Kyle again and we could do this whole thing again. I think the with prejudice, I think the only reason why it sounded weird is just because we had the word prejudice in our head from earlier in the trial when they were talking about the mistrial with prejudice. And, you know, we all learned what does prejudice mean in this context, and it just means that you can't bring it up again. And it's always been standard that if a jury finds you not guilty, then it's double jeopardy. You can't bring it back up. And so I think the judge just had maybe a more archaic way of saying it, but when he said that the charges are dropped with prejudice, all that meant was that he was accepting the jury's decision, because the jury puts forward the decision, right? But the judge is the person who orders the kind of legal mechanisms, right? So if you kind of think of law more of like, I don't know, kind of like an incantation type of a thing. Like, the judge is the person who says the magic words, which releases Kyle from his 6 curses of being charged with something. The jury is the one who decides it, but it's only the judge who has the magic words power to drop it from Kyle. So the jury decided Kyle's not guilty, and so the judge says the magic words, the charges are dropped with prejudice, meaning that not only are does the curse fall off of Kyle, Kyle's now immune to that curse in the future. The state cannot recurse him with the charges. So I don't think that it was, I know what you're saying, Dyer, but I don't think that it was like, I don't think it had anything to do with the motion for mistrial. I think that those are just the magic words that are spoken every time. It's just this time we happened to clue into them a little bit more because we had that word prejudice in our mind from the mistrial part. Let's see here. So some people are talking about the possibility of a federal trial. I don't know if a not guilty verdict in, I don't even know. I don't know enough about law and like how the court system works to really answer, but it's from my understanding, there was concern early on that even if Kyle's found not guilty in this trial, that the federal courts could take another bite at the apple. They could try and whack him again for some other reason. And so I don't know. It's hard to say that there's not the political willpower to do it, because that certainly hasn't stopped the Biden administration from doing anything else. They don't seem to really care what the politics says. They just, if they have the power to do it, they just do it. So I don't know. That one is probably going to have to be either somebody more legally intelligent than I would have to, you'd have to get info from them, or I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I haven't seen any commentary or any of the legal YouTubers talking about that quite yet, though I assume that will be talked about at some point in the future here, the near future, as to whether or not Kyle has to worry about federal charges later on. Let's see here. The interview with Richards, who again was the one of Kyle's main lawyers there, he said after we play this video forward a little bit, which I'll just play it without audio. We'll see Kyle run out the room real quick. He runs out the room. The Richard said Kyle was, within a half hour of the trial being over, Kyle was his mother was driving him home, and that they were potentially planning on moving out of Wisconsin.
I don't know what's going to happen to him moving forward. I know that let's see here, Representative Matt Gaetz had offered to give Kyle an internship at the House of Representatives, which I believe was meant to be. I believe it was meant to be humorous and a troll that someone the Democrats think is a mass murdering white supremacist would be roaming their halls, bringing Matt Gaetz coffee, which is funny. At the time, I thought it was less funny just because we were on day 3 of deliberation and didn't know what was going to happen, and I'd much prefer someone like Matt Gaetz, instead of getting in good trolls on Twitter, would be to maybe go to this DOJ and say, hey, there's massive civil rights violations going on. They're violating his Second Amendment, his Fifth Amendment, his right to counsel, his right to see evidence, his right to face his accuser. We got some pretty big civil liberties issues going on here. Like, hey, DOJ, like, why don't you go stop this trial? I would have much rather seen him do that, but I guess Kyle's got an open invitation to be an intern on Capitol Hill. The Crowder has, extended out he was live streaming during the verdict. I'd recommend going back to rewatch that if you weren't already watching it. But he is streaming during and giving his commentary and then talking after. He was there the first night. The way he said it, they were there the first night covering what happened with Kyle, and they've been kind of covering this ever since, and they've been following the trial. Certainly Direwolf Media has been doing the same. We were there the first night and obviously following it all throughout the trial. And Crowder said, Kyle's got kind of an open invitation to ladder with Crowder, so maybe he's got a future there. I would probably not next week, but in the future, yeah, Kyle selling his life story to the Daily Wire for a couple $1 million, and then Daily Wire making him a movie about the Kenosha kid. That could be an interesting future for him. Yeah, here's where you're going to see Kyle just sprint out of the room. Yeah, just boom. Yeah, so that's the last time we see Kyle. One of the absolute just pinheads in the media asked Richards during his interview after the trial, hey, why didn't Kyle come out to talk to the crowd? And Richards is like, what are you talking about? What on earth would he say to the crowd? What do you want him to say to the crowd? And there were some people joking that maybe the Kenoshans were a little bit worried about the crowd that was going to form in Kenosha tonight, and so they wanted Kyle to come thin out the herd a little bit. Maybe that's the words of wisdom that they wanted from him. And what's going on in Kenosha tonight? Let's see here. Yeah, people are talking about states where you can move to Utah with constitutional carry. Yeah, there's a lot of states. Doing constitutional carry lately. Actually, I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. Certain states that are important to me are blazing forward with that. Yeah, maybe we'll pop on some live streams here in a little bit with Kenosha, see if there's anything interesting going on. I don't really have I'm kind of just talking until I run out of things to say or run out of White Claws to drink here. Probably another half hour or so. We'll see. I'm not on any kind of schedule. I've just been doing this all out of the top of my head here, just all improv. So, but it was it's been joked about that perhaps there won't be the riots tonight because of the not guilty verdict. Perhaps the rioters will think twice about chasing people down and bashing them with skateboards, or pointing Glocks at their head, or letting their pedophiles out of mental hospitals. Yeah, there's, and again, like I said before, there was concern that perhaps this verdict would embolden vigilantism. And again, when they're saying vigilantes, they just mean, you standing there existing, not bending your knee to them, that you're a vigilante. And I think the question is, why shouldn't you be emboldened? Why they ask, will this embolden you? And I say, why shouldn't it embolden you? Let's see here. Alrighty. We got some bunny tweets here, which I think I didn't. Yeah, I didn't really edit these very well. Let me try to organize these a bit. There we go. All right. So, and now I've been talking for not half the time since we found the verdict out. So we found the verdict out about like 1:30, and it's a little after 4:30 now. I think I've been going for about an hour. So I'm sure the salty tweets are still rolling in thick. But there was some early winners here. We had Corey Bush, the judge, the jury, the defendant. It's all white supremacy in action. Well, if there's so much white supremacy in there, maybe you should shut up. Maybe you shouldn't highlight yourself so much. Let's see here. The system is built to hold white supremacists accountable. Isn't built to hold white supremacists accountable. It's why black and brown folks. Why didn't she capitalize brown folks? She capitalized black folks, but what does Corey Bush have against brown folks? Man, racist. She's a black supremacist. This is the face of black supremacy here. Is when you capitalize black, but you don't capitalize brown. Capitalize them both, or capitalize neither. I didn't even comment on her not capitalizing white. That's just expected. But I would have thought that she'd capitalize brown. Yeah, I guess that's the colorism, right? All right. It's why black and brown folks are brutalized and put in cages while white supremacist murderers walk free. I'm hurt. I'm angry. I'm heartbroken. She's probably just hungry. Alrighty. Then we had the ACLU, which incredibly apparently wants to pay for Kyle's college and pay for his house and probably a sports car, possibly another sports car, and they also seem to want to pay for a boat, not like a big boat, but like, you know, maybe a 15-footer, something with an overhead canopy type of a thing, maybe a double outboard motor on it. The ACLU definitely wants to pay for all of that stuff because they almost immediately tweeted out after Kyle was found not guilty. The ACLU tweeted out, Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty of the fatal shooting of two and injury of another during the protests over the shooting of Jacob Blake. This situation represents an outrageous failure to protect protesters by Kenosha Police Department and Kenosha County Sheriff's Office. Months of research and open records requests have uncovered many incidents in which the police have encouraged white militia members to become armed vigilantes in the streets due to their failure to control the crowd. Despite Kyle Rittenhouse's conscious, there we go. I can read. Conscious decision to travel across state lines and injure one person and to take the lives of two people protesting the shooting of Jacob Blake by police. He was not held responsible for his actions. Unsurprisingly, or unfortunately, this is not surprising. I think that they are definitely candidates for a defamation lawsuit here, calling Kyle a white militia member. Kyle, which this has been underreported, Kyle is actually Hispanic. He's halvesies, which I identify with. I appear to be Caucasian, and I am Caucasian due to my Hispaniola descendancy coming from Spain rather than the other place. But Kyle apparently is a little bit brown. He's not quite pure. He certainly has more drops of not white in him than Elizabeth Warren does. He's probably more Native American than she is too, because most people are. So this again, this idea that Kyle's this white supremacist militia member, not a very good one apparently. He's kind of like the brown white supremacist here. So yeah, I would say that the ACLU is definitely wanting to get in on the action of being sued by Kyle Rittenhouse. Let's see here. Linda Sarsour. Oh yeah. Oh boy, I'm getting messages on Skype with links. Should I open them? Let's see here. Okay, so Linda Sarsour tweeted out, "Today America sent a very explicit message that conservative white kids can get guns and assassinate us at protests with impunity. The adults know they can hide behind their children. We are in more danger than ever. Holding the victims' families in my heart today." Isn't Linda Sarsour the jihadist who like wanted to like genitally mutilate her political rivals? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I would say that I would say that this jihadist could probably stuff it. And I mean, I would say to the left out there, and for real, I would say that if you're going to be having conversations with people and they're going to be, let's see here, let me flip the view here. I would say that if you're having conversations with leftists and they're people that are family members or friends that have not, blacklisted you, people who aren't as politically engaged as you and have fallen for the mainstream media narrative on what's been going on with Kyle. And they say stuff like this, like, wow, like, isn't it crazy that just white kids can go like shoot us and stuff, or if they say something similar to this. I would say, there's certainly the option of just kind of, verbally bitch slapping them and going off on them. But if you did want to have like an actual conversation with them, I would say that probably the way to start that would just be responding with, if for instance, if Linda Sarsour, if I had any inkling that she maybe was a good faith actor who was willing to have a conversation and she was just mistaken. Obviously she's not, but if she was, I would maybe reply back to her that, are you planning on, chasing white kids? Are you and throwing bags at them? Are you planning on burning down a car source? Are you planning on setting cars on fire? Are you planning on pointing a gun at white kids? Because if you're not planning on doing those things, like, I don't know that you need to be feeling that you're in danger. I perhaps work on the phrasing there, but I would say that there is a method of discussing that, of people who are really concerned that this is going to, I guess, open the floodgates to vigilantes. Is just explain to them, do you foresee yourself chasing down your political rivals, like running after them through a parking lot, throwing rocks at them, and hitting them with skateboards? Because even if Kyle was a vigilante, well, vigilantes only go after bad people. Are planning on doing something bad to people? Yeah, something to think about. Let's see here. I don't know who this Keith Brooklyn is, other than he's a blue check. No, he's blue check, right? So he must be a one of our betters. Must be much better than I am. Let's see here. I knew it. Kyle Rittenhouse is proof that white people can still break the law, carry illegal weapons, not true, and shoot and kill people and get away with it in America by shedding tears and claiming self-defense. I don't know that Kyle's going to get away with a whole lot here. So we saw him. I went through it the last time I streamed 2 days ago about my thoughts on Kyle's PTSD attack and what was actually happening there. I went through that last time, so I'm not going to go all the way back through it again. But we did find out during the trial that Kyle's in therapy for PTSD. And his attorney, Richards, during his interview today said, Kyle, maybe this will help him sleep at night, but he still doesn't sleep at night because of what happened to him. And that was one of my, I didn't know that before, but that was one of my predictions, that he probably does have night terrors. He probably does have PTSD on par with a lot of our combat soldiers who come back and they've got these issues, because Kyle was in a combat situation. I mean, I don't want to speak for what combat soldiers would go through, but I would say what happened to Kyle is probably pretty close to being up there. Certainly being in a 360 zero quarters combat situation that's pretty bad. That's up there, especially for a 17-year-old. That's way up there. So it's not surprising that he can't sleep at night. And so, again, with as much money as he had to spend, he's certainly going to be a notorious figure for the rest of his life, which is going to affect his employability and what he's able to do, what he maybe thought about, what he's going to do with his future. 2 years ago is probably a little different now than what he thinks he can do with his future now. The mental and emotional trauma that he's gone through, the money that's been spent, the time that's been used. Think about when you were 17 to 18 years old. Would you really have wanted to spend 14 months of your life at that point in time? Just essentially everything on pause, with the every night going to sleep with like the threat of you're going to go to jail for the next 80 years. I would say the idea that he got away with it. First off, there was nothing to get away with because he didn't do anything wrong. But second off, the idea, what this is implying is that he didn't have any consequences. And he managed to get away nearly without a scratch. He did have some scratches. Nearly without a scratch. But the emotional trauma that he suffered at the hands of the left, he's pretty scarred from that. He's clearly scarred from that. And so, yeah. So I don't, this idea that he didn't have any consequences is totally ridiculous. Jameel Hill says, nobody is surprised, but that doesn't mean outrage isn't appropriate. Well, outrage is their response to like everything. So I don't know that I'm surprised that that's her thing. And then somebody else had to say that, when you say or imply that property is more valuable than human life, you enable Kyle Rittenhouses to walk free. Whether or not property is more valuable than your life is up to you. If you value your life more than the property, maybe don't go take it from somebody. If, however, you think that property is more valuable than your life, why don't you fuck around a little bit? Alrighty, I think I got some more. I thought I had another panel of tweets up here. I think I got a whole browser full of them. There we go. Got a whole window full of tabs. Alrighty. Oh, there's a cute fox. Oops. Don't look at that. So embarrassing. You guys saw the cute foxes on my timeline here. Alrighty. Yeah, this got some fun memes from what happened after the trial. Obviously, this was during the trial, but I can imagine Lunchbox is probably pretty upset right now. There were some warnings that perhaps the comic book shops maybe need to guard their Star Wars sections because Binger is going to be coming in, wrecking them, and perhaps the nearest Chuck E. Cheese and Pizza Hut should maybe close down the buffets for the night because Krause is coming in hot. Let's see here. We got GoFundMe. Oh, no. GoFundMe's terms of service have prohibited raising money for the legal defense of alleged violent crime. That's not true. In light of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, we want to clarify when and why we have removed certain fundraisers in the past. And they have disabled replies. Oh, that's so crazy. We will look through some of the quote tweets here because they are getting ratioed as fuck right here. GoFundMe, they kind of put Kyle on the map of people that were getting debanked. Kyle was unable to raise funds for a very long time for his defense. Again, you've got the state bringing with the full backing of taxpayer dollars and an unlimited kitty to pull from, and they're bringing charges which they don't meet the legal requirements of against somebody for political purposes because the president decided a candidate for president decided they wanted to make Kyle the face of white supremacy to get himself elected. And then, Kyle, just a regular person, a lifeguard in Kenosha, is like, oh, well, crap, I'm going to need a little dough to, defend myself against the entire like every level of the Democrat apparatus. And then GoFundMe is like, no, you can't do that. And then there was a whole bunch of other crowdsourced funding that also blocked him. And I think they need to be held accountable for that. I think GoFundMe should match. I think through lawsuits, they should sue GoFundMe. Absolutely. Let's look through some of the quote tweets here. I bet you know those are good. Ratio. There's a reason why they have disabled replies. Go fuck yourself. That's as much of a covering of the behind as you'll ever see. Get effed. Never ever use GoFundMe again. I will never give to GoFundMe ever. You guys are horrible. Didn't GoFundMe allow legal defense funds of rioters from Antifa and BLM? They did do that, didn't they? They definitely did that. Let's see here. GoFundMe not only allowed a fundraiser for a group Riot Kitchen dedicated to providing logistical support for riots, but the company itself actually donated $500. The group was arrested outside Kenosha while filling up gas containers to distribute to rioters. Wow, so GoFundMe actually bought gas for the Kenosha rioters to burn down the car source. And then Jesus. It was a great shit show. Please don't sue us, Kyle. Please don't sue us, Kyle. Please don't sue us, Kyle. And then I would say that this is probably the one that we'll leave this. There's 3,000 of these. I'm sure that they're all gold, but we won't forget what you did to Kyle. I think that's a good place to leave this thread on. And I think that's a good... I think that's probably a mantra that needs to be held going forward, as I think that the right has way too short of a memory. We are way too... We have traditionally been much more conciliatory to people wishing to do us harm. A lot of people on the, I don't necessarily want to say on the right, but people on the not left, not leftists versus leftists. The not leftists have like stuff to do, like there's families and jobs and social obligations that like we all engage in outside of like politics. You know, some of us maybe are engaged in politics a little bit too much, but a lot of us have like other stuff to do. Whereas like leftists, they are, everything is in service to their ideology. They don't forget because they don't have other things to distract themselves. They're only ever focused on what's the next way we can do you harm. Whereas every time they harm us, we're like, oh man, like why'd you do that? And then like 2 months later, we're like, oh, you know, like I got like kids baseball game to go to, or you know, I gotta go to work and get this meeting prepared for, or you know, I gotta go you know, cut my lawn or rebuild my fence or whatever. Yeah, we got life and stuff to do, which is what, you know, you're supposed to be able to do that in this country. You're supposed to have like the freedom to like have a life to do stuff. And then we forget all about it and we let it be. But they don't. All they remember is that we foiled their attempt at getting us. And so they just sit there and they stew about how angry they are that they failed in their mission to hurt us. And that just gets them all wound up for the next time. They're like, we're gonna get them back twice as much next time because they didn't let us get them this time. And meanwhile, we're just completely forgetting about it. I think that we're, not that it's a good thing for us to have those longer memories, for us to become more, I guess, vindictive or to hold grudges. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, but I think it's going to become a necessity rather soon. And so I think that maybe by choice, we should start having longer memories, like remembering what GoFundMe did to Kyle, remembering that Twitter blocked as misinformation all of the things defending Kyle that were obviously evidence that was exonerating him, that Facebook did the same, all of the credit card companies that tried to block Kyle. Actually, Facebook today, Twitter today, was blocking and putting strikes on your account if you tweeted out Kyle Rittenhouse did nothing wrong after the verdict came out. And I don't think that should be forgotten. Jack Posobiec, with a absolutely true reminder that somewhere 5 boys who were victimized by Joseph Rosenbaum are glad that this day has come. So something like 15 years ago, Rosenbaum raped 5 9 to 11-year-olds. So they're probably, I guess I would put them in their mid-20s, a little bit older than Kyle. And yeah, I'm sure wherever they are, they're probably, I guarantee you they recognize who Rosenbaum is. That's almost guaranteed. And they probably are somewhere very thankful that the person who did the justice that the state refused to do for them was allowed to go free. Cernovich reminding us that the live streamers saved Kyle's life. That is true. The Kyle, man, if Kyle had been in a dark alley with no stuff being streamed, or if he had just been a side street over, or if the lights in the parking lot of that car source had been knocked out, whatever, Kyle was saved because of that video. Which again, as I said, and as I reiterated that Crowder had said, the problem with this case is that it was such a layup with all of the video footage. If you're ever in a self-defense situation, you're not going to have the benefit of all of that video footage. You're just going to have to hope that, maybe you're just like a standard case of self-defense and the left hasn't set their ISR on you, that a candidate for the Democrat ticket hasn't decided that you're the face of white supremacy today. You'll just have to hope that stuff isn't there. But even so, if you've got the state so slanted against you as they were against Kyle, they had all of this evidence that exonerated Kyle. Again, hundreds of hours of video footage from dozens and dozens of angles of every moment that night. And still the state, they slanted the evidence. They did every dirty trick in the book. They made stuff up. They still had it slanted against him. I mean, if there was one less video that night, they might have put Kyle away. So I think that's definitely a true take from Cernovich there, but also it just re-highlights the problem that this case was even brought to trial. Is there was so much evidence that exonerated him, and they still brought it to trial. If you don't have hundreds of hours exonerating you in your self-defense incident, what's going to happen to you? Definitely not a sponsorship, because we're not sponsored. I make so much not money from doing this. I think we might have fixed the Streamlabs link at the bottom if anybody wants to toss some bread my way. But I not a sponsorship, but I did re-up my self-defense insurance today. I use U.S. Law Shield. I chose them because they do generalized. It's like CCW insurance, right? Which a lot of people have heard of it. There's concealed carry insurance. The reason why I picked U.S. Law Shield was because they have not just concealed carry insurance. It's for any self-defense incident. When they were presenting, their pitch, they were talking about a case that they were handling in my state, actually. And this elderly woman, somebody had broken into her house and was attempting to do bad stuff to her. And she grabbed her toaster and got a good right hook with a toaster on this guy's face and then bashed the fuck out of it. This 65-year-old lady beating some would-be criminal in the face with a toaster. Well, he's trying to sue her because she beat him in the face with a toaster, and U.S. Law Shield said, "Well, I don't care if it's your fist, if it's a gun, if it's a toaster, we will defend you if it's self-defense." So that's why I use them, and that's why I re-upped my subscription today. Well, also I re-upped it today because it ran out. But yeah, I would say that definitely having some kind of self-defense insurance, because you don't know if you're gonna have your pistol on you, right? You don't know if you're gonna have a gun on you. You have an AR, whatever. You might have to use your fist or a toaster or whatever. And so that's why I like them, is because they have generalized self-defense, and not just gun-based self-defense. Just a little PSA. It's certainly not a sponsor, but if US Law Shield's listening, you can, give me my free sponsorship. That'd be great. All right, what else do we got? Darth Crypto has been a major player in the kind of Twitter legal defense of Kyle. So, as I said multiple times during this kind of series of shows that we did, I was focusing as much as I could on just what was happening in the trial. There was basically every other commentator was focusing on a lot of the external stuff to the trial, and then just highlighting like one or two interesting things that happened per day in the trial, whereas we did much more in depth every day of the trial. So somebody who I didn't talk a lot about, but he did come up a few times, was Darth Crypto. And Darth Crypto on Twitter have been doing a ton of really, really great video analysis and kind of debunking the state prosecutors, and he helped expose a lot of what we now know about the manipulated footage that the state tried to fabricate and tried to pass off as legitimate evidence, et cetera, et cetera. So he's proposing what I've been proposing this whole time, is that we need something that has Kyle's name on it. We need a piece of legislation with Kyle's name on it. I don't know if he's necessarily being super serious about it, but basically he's saying, call it Kyle's Law, and Kyle's Law would ban political prosecutions. It would empower citizens when local governments abdicate duties to protect. It would change libel laws to prevent media, politically biased defamation, and jury pool tampering, and it would standardize self-defense laws. Yeah, I would say that'd be a great framework for a Kyle's Law, and I think you should call it Kyle's Law. Absolutely, I think that there should be Kyle's Laws drafted in states, and then I would love to see a federal Kyle's Law. That's going to definitely need to happen. And I really do. I think that this was a good test case for naming the bill after him. Because it wasn't just, after Kyle defended his life against again, like I said, it was every level of the Democrat Party, capital P party, similar to the Communist Party at this point. They used everything they had against Kyle. They used their foot soldiers. They used their criminals with rap sheets miles long. What is Democrat criminal justice reform been? It's been just letting criminals out of jail. Why? Well, so that they can do chaos on the street the way that they did. Kyle shot at 4 people, and each of those people had 40 plus convictions on their rap sheet. So, after the Democrat foot soldiers couldn't get him, then they spun up the state, prosecutors funded by leftist organizations. We'll remember that Binger ran on the Democrat ticket 3 months before Kyle's incident, and Binger lost. That's why he was in the courtroom with Kyle, probably very, very resentful of that. And then when it seemed like the Democrat prosecutors were failing, the Democrat media, MSNBC, attempting to tamper with the jury by stalking them. And then now they're going to, after the fact, they're going to continue prosecuting him in the court of public opinion and continue defaming him. So, yeah, we need a Kyle's Law. We need a Kyle's Law. And... yeah, I think we should call it Kyle's Law. Alrighty. Let's see here. President Biden commented on the Rittenhouse verdict a little bit ago. He said, quote, "I stand by what the jury has to say. The jury system works." That was President Biden becoming president again and arriving on the South Lawn after he he took off today. He had a colonoscopy apparently, and apparently Kamala Harris was president for several hours today because Joe Biden, every time the president goes in for a medical procedure, they temporarily abdicate the throne and the vice president becomes acting president. This was like the first, I guess, biggest procedure Biden had. Doubtful. This is the first time that Kamala took over as acting president. And a bunch of people thought it was kind of funny that, you know, Kamala was president for like 5 minutes and then Rittenhouse goes free. Everybody's like, well, you know, I was kind of worried about the Kamala Harris presidency, but, you know, so far it doesn't seem so bad. Actually seems kind of good. Let's see here. Alrighty. And then, okay, yeah, this is what I was talking about a little bit ago. So Mayor Bill de Blasio, for some reason thinks that anybody cares what he has to say. Mayor Bill de Blasio would love to join the ACLU and Joe Biden and the mainstream media in getting sued by Kyle Rittenhouse because Mayor Bill de Blasio tweeted out, Anthony Huber and Joseph Rosenbaum are victims. Not true. They should be alive today. Not true. The only reason they are not is because a violent, dangerous man chose to take a gun across state lines. Not true. And start shooting people. Also not true. To call this a miscarriage of justice is an understatement. So this is funny. You have de Blasio at 1:22 p.m. Like the verdict was at like 1:15 p.m. So like 7 minutes later, Bill de Blasio tweeting out the gun across state lines. Like that, I don't know. That's why I'm saying, like, I don't know how we live with these people. Like, is he lying? Does he just not know? Does he not care? Did he make it up? I don't know. But I don't know how we continue living with these people. When they are able to get power and to have any kind of power over us, and it was different, you know, decades ago when, you know, the party system was kind of ambivalent towards each other. But now it's just such hatred, such absolute hatred. And it's really only directed in one direction, right? You know, we would, if the left would stop attempting to oppress us right now, the battle would be over. Because we could all just go back to our lives and we wouldn't push back because there'd be nothing to push back against. We would just go do what we normally do. We'd go live our lives. If we stopped pushing back, if our side stopped pushing back, the left would overrun us tomorrow. We'd all be in jail tomorrow. So it's when you've got one side that is responsible, that is solely responsible for the conflict, as the left is in our current narrative. And again, not just regular old political conflict, like vitriol and hatred and wanting to use the state to grind you to dust. I don't know how we live with these people. All right, Timber, I'm going to click on your link. Better not be weird stuff. Okay, this is this is Freedom Tunes, and he just put this out. Okay, I haven't seen this yet. I'm sure this is absolutely hilarious. Let's watch Freedom Tunes here.
Oh, look at those crocodile tears, man.
In today's news,
That was pretty good. They had another one from a few days ago. We'll watch that. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, this was their one from a few days ago.
Okay, so a thief, a domestic abuser, and a convicted child rapist all walk into a BLM riot. They try to murder a 17-year-old and he shoots them in self-defense.
Whoa, that poor child rapist, man.
What? How in what world could you possibly...
hey, I got this. Okay, So the convicted child rapist who threatened to murder a teenager several times?
What about him?
He's kind of like Voldemort.
No, this cannot work. Oh, son of a bitch!
Freedom Tunes knows how to do it. Alrighty, well, I don't know where else to go from here. Like I said, I think as the damage that was done to the broader narrative, like the broader political situation, it was done the second that this case was brought to trial. So no real reason to mourn it tonight. I think that we can be purely excited tonight and for the foreseeable future that Kyle was able to find justice through such insurmountable odds. It was so improbable that he survived that night, and then with all of the physical force put against him, he somehow survived that night. And then after, with all of the political pressure put against him, he still somehow survived that. So be excited for Kyle, be excited for us, be excited for a win in the culture war. Like I said, the other narrative of just the idea that this represents a degradation in our culture, that this case was even brought to trial, that it was a miscarriage of justice to even bring it to trial, that damage was done. That damage has already been done, and it didn't change today. It just merely didn't get worse today. So it's perfectly fine to, let's pull ourselves back up and do a happy moment. We'll close off the stream on being happy and very, very excited for Kyle. I was emotional when it happened. You saw Kyle was emotional, falling to his knees. I think all of us are very happy, very excited for him. At the end of the day, an innocent man is gonna go free. That's a good thing. That's absolutely a good thing. All the other stuff, we'll pick back up on that tomorrow with the weekly news recap, I'm certain. But yeah, go to sleep happy tonight, and hopefully, I really do hope that Kyle is able to find some sleep tonight. As kind of that was rough hearing from his attorney that he's having trouble sleeping at night for the whole last 14 months because of this. I hope that this gives him a nice night's sleep. Alrighty, guys. Well, it's I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself all next week. Not streaming for 4 hours a night and not actually doing work at work instead of following the trial and taking notes. I thank you guys all so much for riding on this crazy journey with me. I think this was the 13th or 14th episode that we did on this, on the Rittenhouse trial updates. It was a long slog, and it all had a nice culmination today. It was nice to see this end after putting so much effort into it. And thank you guys for watching this. Thanks for following along. Thanks for being engaged in chat and all that stuff. I think some of you guys got pulled in new for the seeing the Rittenhouse stuff. We do a show on Saturdays. Typically, we only stream on Saturdays. Sometimes I stream other times during the week. But keep us pinged on YouTube and D Live, and we'll be back on tomorrow. And hopefully most other Saturdays, although the holiday season is coming in, so sometimes the schedule gets a little bit rocky. But we usually do a weekly news recap, 2 to 3 hours, just going through the major stories of that week with some commentary. So look forward to doing that. And then, like I said, thanks so much for following me through on this. Hope all you guys stay safe and have a good weekend. And next week's Thanksgiving. That'll be fun. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Let's watch. I want to watch that verdict one more time. We'll leave off on that. How about that?
Defendant will rise, face the jury, and hearken to its verdicts.
State of Wisconsin versus Kyle Rittenhouse. As to the first count of the information, Joseph Rosenbaum. We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the second count of the information, Richard McGinnis, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the third count of the information, unknown male, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the fourth count of the information, Anthony Huber, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the fifth count of the information, Gage Grosskreutz, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty.
Members of the jury, are these your unanimous verdicts? Is there anyone who does not agree with the verdicts as read? Would you wish the jury polled?
All right, guys. Have a good night and a good weekend. See you guys tomorrow. Trevize signing off.